That's a really good shout, actually. That's an important shout because Christopher was brilliant in The Sinner. Do you remember he was in The Sinner too? And I love that series, and I completely forgotten about that.
I love The Sinner.
Yeah,
I love The Sinner. I'm nodding with Possessor, thinking I'm never watching The Possessor.
yeah, you'd hate Possessor.
Yeah,
don't
Possessor.
go there, hun.
Wow.
Don't go there. Welcome back, everybody. My name is Phil Murray. I'm joined by the boys on film. Look at them. Look at their beauty. Raj Rudolph, Sean Vickers. Hello, guys.
Hi.
We're all here.
Hi.
Can I just check with you before we review this film that you're not carrying hot coffee?
Not carrying, but I always have hot coffee right next to me. Always. You know that, Phil.
It's a little in-joke. If you've seen the film or you're about to see the film, just look out for that scene that I'm referencing.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, yeah,
Probably one of the funniest moments, I think, of the film. Anyway, should we talk about it? It's written, directed by Lawrence Michael Levine. It stars Aubrey Plaza. We love her. It's a satirical comedy thriller. Would you say that, boys?
That's pretty spot on.
Yeah, it's got. Yeah, would I say that? Well, it made me laugh in places. It made me confused in places. Yeah, all right, I'll go with that. I'm gonna roll with it. Yeah.
I reckon it's going to divide people, though, because it's that kind of film, isn't it? That unless you've seen the whole thing, we were talking about this just before we started rolling, Sean, and I said that I liked it up to a certain point, and then it kind of frustrated me until I saw the end, and then I knew what kind of film it was, and I think in hindsight I would have enjoyed it more had I seen it again, if that makes sense.
Well, that's interesting you say that, because I just didn't understand what the heck was going on.
So Sean did, I think.
Did you?
Well,
Sean, I'd love for you to dissect this one.
I'm gonna give it a go. It could be nonsense, but then, hey. So I'll set the scene a little bit. So it's set in the Adirondack Mountains, and it follows the story of a writer who rocks up to live with a couple and to do some creative writing. And the writer is obviously Aubrey Plaza, and the couple are called Gabe and Blair, and they're played by Christopher Abbott and Sarah Gadon, respectively. And so that all seems quite straightforward, right?
Yeah.
And then there's the film.
So far, so good. Then there's the second part.
There you go. I told you, Raj. I've described it.
It all sounds so easy to digest, doesn't it?
We all kind of agree that up to a certain point, I really enjoyed it. It was actually the first act that I really enjoyed. But as soon as they went into that second act, the film within the film, that kind of just threw me for a loop. And I felt like I was going in a loop.
Tonally, both parts of this film very different, because the first half quite extreme, quite tense, and it did feel like a thriller. The second was more funny, I think, because there are certain elements where they're making a film that were quite satirical, quite farcical.
I mean, there's a few things. So let's just play around with that idea, because I kind of like all the Charlie Kaufman stuff. So I love like Synecdoche, New York, and Spotless Mind, and all that good stuff, right? And there's some of that here, which is like it's meta, like some things existing within something else, existing within something else. So I'm like, okay, I'm playing with that idea in my head. And then it kind of made me think of, that film we saw, Phil, like you might have seen it, right? Siberia with Willem Dafoe.
Oh, yeah.
Which it's similar. And then, that was like a dream sequence. And I was like, it's giving me vibes of all of these kind of movies. Like some of it feels a bit dream sequencey, and is it actually real? Some of it feels a bit meta, and is it a scene within a scene within a scene? Is it art imitating life, imitating art, imitating life? Like, so all this thing was like ruminating in my head, but all of those questions only appeared in the second half. In the first half, I was like, this is nice.
Exactly. Yeah. Like I could have watched a whole movie of the first act of them just scathingly going at each other, and and the dialogue. Like it was really enthralling. I really enjoyed it. Man, these guys just should not be in a relationship. It drew you in.
It's really funny because they're set in a beautiful location, because it's a remote lake house, and my other half, Jeremy, said, I really want to be there. I love this location. It's beautiful. Take me there. But I just don't want to be with these people, because these people are just at each other's throats, and there's so much tension. And one of the characters, Sarah Gadon, who was in True Detective, she she's brilliantly playing the partner of Christopher Abbott, and she's pregnant. She's analysing everything, and it's one of those conversations that you have where somebody does analyse everything, and it kind of takes the fun out of a conversation. And then you find yourself going around in a loop. It's almost like, oh, don't analyse it too much, because you just take the joy out of everything. And it became that scenario where it's very cringeworthy. I thought that was great. There's so much tension.
There was that great Aubrey Plaza line where she was like, "Bitches be crazy," and I just lost it. It was so funny. It needed to cut through the tension, and I was like, "Yeah, this movie's great. I love it." And yeah, the second act.
I love Aubrey Plaza. I love her facial expression. She's got those eyes that say, "Don't talk to me." It's like, "Don't fuck with me. Don't even get near me." But you kind of sense that she's hiding something, and I guess that was her character as well. In the first half, you could see that she was a bit mysterious.
I thought in the first half, what I found interesting was Gabe and Blair were clearly just hungry for anything that wasn't like mountain cottage. So like, I think they paint this idea that they came from Brooklyn and they were like big creative free thinkers, blah blah blah, and then they move out to the countryside. And my sense was in comes Allison, played by Aubrey Plaza, and they almost like ring her out because they're just desperate for some kind of stimulation. Here comes this writer who's a feminist, and suddenly, you know, you've got Gabe and Blair. Gabe's kind of trying to like flirt a bit. Blair's trying to like demonstrate like her like, I don't know, like her academic like prowess, and it all kind of sits in a really odd way. But I love the fact it's just the three of them kind of bouncing off each other. I thought it was really clever. I really liked it.
Yeah, because Aubrey Plaza's character very early on says, "People can't read me. They never think that I'm taking anything seriously." And I kind of think that with Aubrey Plaza as a real person, some of the roles that she's had in movies, it's very, very similar. I don't know whether she's typecast or whether she just goes for those roles that seem similar to her. I mean, she might be very different. I don't know. But I always get that impression that she is a bit mysterious. And she has that twinkle in her eye, I think. She's up to something. She's up to no good, but in a funny way.
Totally agree. Yeah, I kind of think that she's definitely like that in real life. Like there's just something about her too that that quirkiness really shines on screen. And although I may not have enjoyed this film as much, like I was totally in just because Aubrey Plaza was in it. And I think, you know, one of the shining examples of why she's such a good actress is because of Ingrid Goes West, where she's kind of like has that same character, and you know, and you just want to watch her, and that's what I did during the first film or the first part of the movie. But when it shifted to the second portion, when it wasn't really all about her, that's when I kind of lost interest. So I think that says something to how well she can capture people's attention.
Absolutely, screen. Yeah, she's pretty mesmerizing. I mean, she's compelling to watch, I think, as an actor. You didn't lose interest, Sean? I'm gathering you kind of stuck with it all the way through.
Well, I had my husband in one ear grumbling, going, "What's going on?" And I was like, "Just stay with it." My usual, like, "Just stay with it. You know, let it just wash over you." There's some really interesting things because I don't want to give too much away, but the three main characters are in the second half of the film, but some of the construct is different.
Yeah.
And the second half of the film presents itself as a film within a film, which is lol in certain ways. Like it's quite amusing, but there were things that tied both together, and so in my head I was like, this is following, but actually, did this run first? Actually, is this before the first part? Like, and then actually, even though we're seeing the three main characters, is that just a device about how she thinks and processes things as a writer? And so, I don't know. There were just elements of it, which I mean, I actually quite enjoyed the second bit because it was more fun. Everyone just got drunk and stoned and threw coffee around. So it was just kind of like great on the last day of a shoot. There were some really questionable things as well. Like I thought his behavior, Gabe's behavior towards Allison, was really problematic because he was so anchored on getting that scene or getting that part of his movie. Her emotions were almost secondary. So I found that really problematic and really like. But it was just so different because you came off the first half with expectations about who all three of them were.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
they kind of played with that idea in your head. So it's a bit like a literary puzzle. And at the end I was like, well, maybe I don't care. Maybe I'm not bothered about how it all works out, but I quite like what they've done. This whole shivot, that's like pivot, not shivot. Pivot.
Shiver. I love to shiver.
It's like It's like a gay pivot. It's but like it pivoted into something else, and I was a bit like, okay. And as I say, some of these other films came into my mind that I was like, oh, it reminds me a bit of this, and what would I do in that situation? Like if I was watching a David Lynch movie, I'd probably just go, okay, like because it kind of goes somewhere else, and that's how I kind of felt about it.
To a certain extent, I did kind of think, oh, should I care? Should I care for them because I don't really know 100% what's going on? But again, I guess that's part of the magic of the film is that you don't really know what's happening all the way through it. But my other half fell asleep.
Oh, wow.
I didn't fall asleep, but my other half did.
Well, that's interesting because that's the question. Were either of you bored? Because I wasn't bored.
No, not at all.
Definitely not during the first act. The second act, I did find myself checking the phone a little bit, going, when is this going to be over? And I was kind of curious, actually, when the second half ended. I thought there would be a third bit at the end, and there was a tiny bit. But I thought there was going to be a whole third act, so I was kind of expecting another story tacked on at the end.
Yeah,
so
me
they did
too.
the chapter thing, so I thought there would have been a chapter 3, which would have been another take on the situation, but there wasn't. So that kind of threw me for a bit, but I was kind of wanting it. So I guess you could say I wasn't bored because I wanted to see more, but I did lose a little interest in the chapter 2 bit.
Like I say, if I'd maybe watched it again, I would appreciate it more, but not knowing did leave me a little bit frustrated. But then I think that's the joy of having something unconventional, isn't it? Because it is quite an unconventional movie to a certain extent. It's not completely independent in feel, but it does feel quite daring, I think, doing something a little bit differently and creative.
Sometimes in a dream, something will happen in the day and then it plays out in a dream slightly differently. So, you'd be like, oh, I don't know, I'm making it up. I went to a concert, and you might dream about the concert, but, you might be on stage or something might be different, but it's similar but not the same. There's when they're having their debate around, are you a feminist and what did you study and all that kind of stuff, it plays out again in the second one slightly differently, but if you catch it, they're having the same conversation, but it's just slightly different. And that's where I started thinking about these kind of if you play things out, if she's doing what I described, which is just personally my own opinion about how my perception of the film, if you play things out but slightly spin them in a different way, you would get a similar but not the same outcome. And so there were a few things like that which made me think of the dream stuff and made me think of a creative writing process in a way.
Very interesting. Anyway. Yeah, that one makes perfect sense.
Yeah, I think the film did exactly what it needed to do, and it's making the three of us really think hard about it, which is what probably is its main goal, is for us to think about it. So,
yeah, definitely, because it's going to be talked about.
I'm thinking a lot more about it now than I was.
So it is Black Bear. It's going to be released in the UK and Ireland on digital platforms on the 23rd of April. Let us know if you're going to see it or thinking about seeing it, or maybe you've seen it already. I have to say also it's not too long either. It's about an hour and 40. So it's not like one of those films where if it does confuse you, it's just dragging on and on and on. It is, it's enjoyable. Should we go for a star rating? It's a 3 for me.
I'm between a 3 and a 4, which I know will annoy you because you want round numbers, but I'll go with a 3 as well.
It's definitely a big 3 for me, just because I really enjoyed Aubrey Plaza's
I want to give it a 4 now. I want to give it a 4 now.
You just want to be different.
I kind of didn't think it was. I'm going to give it a 4. Sorry, 4.
And a shout out to Christopher Abbott, who I enjoy watching as a rising star. He was great in Possessor.
He was, yeah.
He was really good in this film. So if you really like films for the actors in it, then yeah, for me, I enjoyed it.
That's a really good shout, actually. That's an important shout, because Christopher was brilliant in The Sinner. Do you remember he was in The Sinner too? And I love that series, and I completely forgotten about that.
The Sinner.
Yeah,
I love Sinner. I'm nodding with Possessor, thinking I'm never watching The Possessor.
Yeah, you'd hate Possessor.
Don't
go there, hun.
Wow.
Don't go there.
There's a director's cut you can watch too.
Oh, joy! More minutes.
No, thanks, Raj.
Good to see you, boys. Lots coming up. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and like this video if you've enjoyed it, and we'll see you next time.